No one expected the big, unpolished Driscus Du Plessis to take out Robert Whittaker. Then they doubted he had what it takes to beat Sean Strickland. After that, they figured his unusual fighting style wouldn't stand a chance against a technical kickboxer like Israel Adesanya. Now he's the reigning defending middleweight champ, and everyone was wrong. Inspired by his recent title defense, I want to talk about 10 fighters who nobody expected to reach the top, but they did. People thought their wins were flukes, but they proved everyone wrong. I'm Tommy from MMA On Point, and a massive thank you to our channel Hall of Famers for all of their continued support. Here are 10 fighters who were unexpectedly great after what everyone thought were lucky wins. Number 10, Emanuel Newton. It's crucial to understand where King Mo was in his career when Emanuel Newton first defeated him. Mo had beaten Gegard Mousasi to become the undefeated Strikeforce light heavyweight champion, making him the top guy at 205 pounds outside the UFC. After losing that title, Mo bounced back with wins over Roger Gracie and Lorenz Larkin, a victory later overturned due to a PED failure, which killed his chances of moving to the UFC as a future title contender. This led him to Bellator, where he was expected to dominate everyone. In the semifinals of the Season 8 tournament, Mo, who had won his debut in under 4 minutes, was set to fight Emanuel Newton, a plus 700 underdog. Nearly 30 fights into his career without any major titles, Newton was seen as just a journeyman. Any win for him would have been considered a fluke, but when he knocked Mo out with a spinning backfist, it didn't do much to shake off the fluke label. However, Newton went on to win the tournament, then beat Mo again in the rematch, winning 4 out of 5 rounds. He unified the light heavyweight title and successfully defended it twice, a feat only Vadim Nemkov has surpassed with his title run. As unexpected as his greatness was, the only reason he's not higher on this list is that it all happened in Bellator. Number 9, Forrest Griffin. One of the big reasons people loved Forrest Griffin was that, despite being 6'3" and shredded, walking around at 220 pounds, he felt like an ordinary guy, just like you and me. He was the underdog who won a reality show, and we were all rooting for him to do well. And he did! He got a few solid first-round finishes after winning the Ultimate Fighter Tough. He even nearly won a split decision in a classic fight against Tito Ortiz. He was doing better than anyone could have hoped. But back then, Tough wasn't yet known for producing champions. When Forrest lost in the first round to Keith Jardine, it didn't exactly boost fans' confidence that he could ever become a champion. So when he was matched up against the debuting Shogun Rua, who was considered the best light heavyweight in the world outside the UFC, I, like many others, didn't have high expectations for Forrest. But we were all wrong. Forrest wore Shogun down and pulled off an all-time classic submission victory. Even with that win, fans still doubted Forrest could defeat the reigning champion, Rampage Jackson, who had just destroyed Chuck Liddell to take the title and then unified it with Pride's champion, Dan Henderson. It seemed like Forrest had his big moment, but now reality was going to catch up with him. But it didn't. Forrest beat Rampage too, earning Fight of the Year honors, a world title, and solidifying his place as an elite light heavyweight, one of the best of all time. Number 8, Mike Brown. If you were an MMA fan in 2008 and knew anything about the WEC, you knew that Uriah Faber was the man. With a 21-1 record, 17 finishes, a 13-fight win streak, and 5 successful title defenses at featherweight, Faber was on his way to superstardom. He had victories over big names like Dominic Cruz, Jeff Curran, and Jens Pulver. This was his peak in the WEC. Then came Mike Brown. While Brown had beaten former title contender Jeff Curran in his WEC debut and had a solid record with strong wins on the regional scene, most people dismissed him as a major underdog going into the fight with Faber. That perception didn't change when Faber essentially sprinted into the punch that Brown used to knock him out, pulling off a stunning first-round upset. At the time, it was seen as a fluke, a mistake by the California Kid. But the narrative changed when Brown successfully defended his title against Leonard Garcia with a first-round arm triangle choke. When the rematch with Faber happened less than a year and a half later, the odds were nearly even, and the fight drew a massive 1.5 million viewers. This time, Brown left no doubt, winning a decisive 5-round decision over the greatest featherweight in WEC history up to that point. Although Brown eventually lost the belt to the future GOAT, Jose Aldo, he had already secured his place as one of the elite 145-pounders of all time. Number 7, Frankie Edgar. I remember UFC 112 so clearly. It was in Abu Dhabi, and I didn't realize the event started at 1:00 p.m. EST, so I fully expected to watch it at the usual 10:00 p.m. time. They did air a replay later that night, but in the afternoon, while watching SportsCenter with my brother, we were both shocked and heartbroken when the ticker revealed that Frankie Edgar had beaten BJ Penn for the lightweight title. I barely even knew who Frankie Edgar was. What the heck was this? He beat the Prodigy? No way. Someone must have messed up the ticker. The decision was unanimous, but it was an incredibly close fight, with most media and fans believing Penn deserved the win. The idea that prime BJ Penn had just lost to a relatively unknown contender didn't sit well with anyone, so an immediate rematch was set up to correct what we all thought was a mistake. But this time, Edgar won all 5 rounds, leaving no doubt. Well, I guess we were all wrong about Frankie. He went on to prove us all wrong again and again with epic rivalries against Gray Maynard and Benson Henderson, as well as 2 featherweight title challenges over the years. Frankie Edgar showed us that the answer to the question, who is an all-time great lightweight that nobody expected to be, is Frankie Edgar. Number 6, Leon Edwards. Despite going 10 fights without a single loss and deserving a title shot for at least a year, Leon Edwards just couldn't win over the fans. Even after winning soundly against Nate Diaz, all anyone talked about was how Diaz almost knocked him out at the end of the fight. So, when Leon faced off against Kamaru Usman, who was making a case for being the welterweight GOAT, everyone expected the champ to do what he always did. Even though Edwards had consistently shown his skills, it seemed like the doubts were justified as the fight reached the final minute of the 5th round, with Rocky appearing completely outclassed. Then, of course, came that unforgettable head kick, headshot dead, and we had a new champion. But even after that, many were quick to dismiss it as a fluke. They said, "You landed one good shot but got dominated for nearly 25 minutes. There's no way you're winning the rematch." I'll admit, I thought he'd lose the second time around too. But Leon proved us all wrong. In the rematch, he left no doubt that he was the better fighter, and he followed it up with a successful title defense against Colby Covington, making Colby look worse than ever. Whether that was because of Leon or Colby having a bad night, Edwards showed he had been overlooked for far too long and was champion material through and through. He was later dethroned by another overlooked fighter, but it's too early to add that guy to this list. Number 5, TJ Dillashaw. When Dominic Cruz was out of the picture for a long time, Renan Barão's legacy as interim champion looked unstoppable. He had 34 straight wins over nearly a decade, including victories over big names like Uriah Faber, twice, Michael McDonald, and Eddie Wineland. Barão was the man and eventually became the undisputed champion during his reign. So, when he was set to fight TJ Dillashaw, who wasn't particularly notable at the time, having lost the TUF finale and recently dropped a fight to Rafael Assunção, nobody gave TJ a chance. Barão was a 10-1 favorite. But Dillashaw shocked the world, dominating the unbeatable Brazilian champion for 5 rounds before finishing him with a head kick. The result was so unexpected that some people tried to explain it away by saying Barão never recovered from the first-round knockdown. When you beat someone that badly, and they still schedule an immediate rematch, it shows just how shocking and dominant Barão had been before that fight. Of course, TJ won the rematch as well, eventually defending the bantamweight title 3 times over 2 reigns. He's generally considered one of the greatest ever at 135 pounds, unless you disqualify him for being the CEO of EPO. Speaking of all-time bantamweights, though, number 4, Aljamain Sterling. Despite an impressive run leading up to his bantamweight title shot against Peter Yan, including a first-round submission win over Corey Sandhagen, it seemed pretty clear that Aljamain Sterling was going to need a finish if he wanted to become champion. Yan was well on his way to securing the last round he needed when he landed an illegal knee on a grounded Sterling, becoming the first champion to lose his title by disqualification. Fans piled on Sterling, accusing him of milking the illegal knee to win the belt. Given how the first fight went, everyone expected that in the rematch, no referee would be able to save Aljo. But once again, everyone was wrong. The rematch was close, no doubt, but Sterling looked massively improved and earned a split decision victory. And if that wasn't enough to silence the critics who doubted his DQ title win, Surely beating TJ Dillashaw and Henry Cejudo would, right? Sadly, no. Some detractors, especially those who didn't like Aljo to begin with, dismissed his wins, citing Dillashaw's injury and Cejudo's 3-year layoff. But with 3 straight title defenses, the most in UFC bantamweight history, Sterling's legacy will likely be kinder to him than some fans have been. Number 3. Fabricio Werdum. Back when Fedor Emelianenko's legendary heavyweight run was still in full swing, the idea that Fabricio Werdum would beat him was laughable. Werdum was the guy who got knocked out by Junior Dos Santos and cut from the UFC. Nobody took him seriously. The fact that Werdum was so underrated is exactly what made his win over Fedor so shocking, and it's why Dana White couldn't contain his glee afterward.
He's not one of the best in the world. It's over. I've been saying it for a long time. You know, all that was back in 2005. It's not 2005 anymore. Guy's been inactive, hasn't fought anybody good. It is what it is.
Not only was Fabricio Werdum underestimated before his fight with Fedor Emelianenko, but when he actually pulled off the win, many people chalked it up to Fedor just getting caught. The general feeling was that Werdum would fade back into obscurity, becoming nothing more than a trivia question: who broke Fedor's streak? But that wasn't the case. After a brief setback with a loss to Alistair Overeem, Werdum returned to the UFC, rattled off 5 straight wins, and then dethroned the heavyweight king, Cain Velasquez. With that victory, along with being the man who broke Fedor's legendary streak, Werdum cemented himself as an all-time great. Not too bad for a guy the UFC once cut. Number 2, Stipe Miocic. Hey, look! It's the guy who took the belt from Fabricio Werdum. That's what most people thought when Stipe Miocic won the heavyweight championship. Even Stipe's own reaction to beating Werdum seemed like he couldn't believe it himself. And fans? They didn't expect it either. For some reason, Stipe has always been seen as the perpetual underdog throughout his career. On that night especially, nobody gave him much of a chance. After all, Werdum had just dethroned Cain Velasquez, burning through every top heavyweight on his way to the belt. So who expected Stipe to win? And then, the way he won, with Werdum charging in early, only to get blasted by Stipe, made it seem like Werdum just made a huge mistake. But that idea didn't last long. Despite often being the underdog, Stipe went on to defend the heavyweight title more times than anyone else in UFC history. It's an accomplishment nobody saw coming from Ohio's finest. Even now, as he waits to fight John Jones in November, many people think he doesn't stand a chance. But here's hoping Stipe has one more surprise left in him, because what a fitting end that would be for a guy who was always counted out. Number 1, Amanda Nunes. How could it not be Amanda Nunes at number 1? When you think about it, her story is incredible. At the time, most people saw Nunes' title shot against Miesha Tate as just a formality. Tate had just won the bantamweight title from Holly Holm in a dramatic fashion, and the UFC had already planned for Ronda Rousey to be her first defense. But when Ronda wasn't ready to come back, the UFC set up a filler fight, one that would headline UFC 200 after the card had been significantly altered. Nobody was excited about this fight, and almost no one gave Nunes a chance. Just 2 years earlier, she had been dominated by Katsunano, and people hadn't forgotten. Then, Nunes shocked everyone by dominating Tate, and the UFC almost ignored her achievements as they focused on Ronda's comeback for her next title defense. But after Nunes knocked Rousey out in just 48 seconds, more respect started to come her way. And she didn't stop there. She went on to beat every other all-time great female fighter, cementing her status as the greatest of all time. Leave a comment below about whether you were a true believer in the fighters on today's list. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next video.